We're going to be reacting to the Diablo 4 review for that IGN put out. It's a 15-minute review, and we're going to be reacting to it as we watch it.
4's Vessel of Hatred expansion left me dangling off a narrative cliff like a hapless sanctuary peasant. Lord of Hatred had quite a lot riding on its ability to deliver on that momentum.
You shall darken the world no longer.
And give me a reason to become hopelessly lost.
Like, Mephisto does look really good in here.
Once again. The good news is that it's done exactly that, thanks to a tight, satisfying campaign, 2 new classes that I've already spent dozens of hours experimenting with and min-maxing builds for, and an endgame that's
so the skill tree that looks very in depth.
I forgot some of the systems even existed. If you've been waiting for a reason to dive back into Diablo 4's particular brand of misery, Lord of Hatred has plenty of compelling reasons to do so.
The Warlock does look really good. I can't wait to play the class. So let's see what they have to say about the game.
As a proper end to the demonic battle that's been building since 2023, Lord of Hatred's cutscenes are unsurprisingly jaw-dropping, but it's the writing and pacing of this short and sweet 8-ish hour campaign that stands as some of Blizzard's best work yet. It had me on the edge of my seat from beginning to end, with all sorts of twists, turns, and tragedies, references to deep Diablo lore, and motivations for even its most irredeemable characters that had me debating demon philosophy with my friends in party chat as we smashed our way through gobs of imps.
My queen, let him walk free.
And all this looks like footage that they've already shown in some of their releases.
Of what hate can do.
Sure, the campaign is only a tiny part of the inevitable hundreds of hours that will be spent mindlessly exploding loot goblins into sparkly treasures, but part of the reason I'm so attached to this depressing and violent world is precisely because of the mysteries, drama, and unforgettable.
Do wish you they would have brought in the Amazon class, just because you're in Scovos, it would make sense.
Easily one of my favorite Diablo campaigns to date. That campaign primarily takes place in Sanctuary's latest locale, Scovos, a Mediterranean-style island that plays an especially interesting role in Diablo's lore as the birthplace of humanity. This new region has many of the things we've come to expect from the series, like an incredibly alarming human to horrifying
new enemy types,
and destroyed places that are covered in disgusting fleshy blisters, and whatever the heck a corpse clot is. But plenty of things here are a breath of fresh air.
And there's the Warlock.
Namely beautiful and not yet destroyed areas that reflect the fact that this ancient place has been spared the worst of the horrors the mainland has faced all these years. The region has also got lots of diversity to it, from Lovecraftian coated foggy shorelines to volcanic hellscapes, each adding new reasons to keep on trekking around in search of loot. Scovos isn't nearly as densely filled with new dungeons as the mainland of Sanctuary, but the stuff that is there, especially the new strongholds to conquer, are well worth doing.
There, we've reclaimed
so strongholds I just never touch
anymore.
anymore.
And some new places to explore, Lord of Hatred also introduces 2 very cool character classes to shake things up. The returning Paladin is about what you'd expect if you'd journeyed across Sanctuary as one in Diablo 2, with loads of protection abilities and ridiculously powerful build options like the Aura build my co-op mate designed so he could just walk around destroying everything.
The Paladin is built very well, I will say. I've played a lot of the Paladin.
On the other hand, is completely new to the series, not counting Diablo 2 having recently retroactively added it for the 30th anniversary, of course, which has you claiming Hell's Power as your own in a wide variety of diverse builds. That ranges from the Necromancer-like Legion options, they're all about summoning demons to do your fighting for you, to the Vanguard build that...
So Warlock, I'll probably do a Summoner Warlock when it launches, just like I'm doing in D2.
The Paladin is pure nostalgic comfort food that I'm glad to have added to the roster, but I prefer the new hotness of the Warlock, especially just how diverse you can get with it by going down each of the 4 disciplines, or by mixing and matching them together to create something unexpected.
Oh, I thought you had to pick one
play
playstyle.
These 2 new skill trees, though, is that the 6 already available have been complete.
So as you can see right there, the skill trees look like they're more advanced, and it looks like, so that's the sorcerer's tree. So for basically they went the last epoch route, where you have one tree, you have one like fragment, and it like branches off. So Cataclysm has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that you can go into.
Completely reworked. The changes are mostly centered around the fact that instead of having a bunch of highly attractive passive perks,
So you can see right
they did simple
there,
yet incredibly
it's
efficient
way
things,
more in
increasing
depth.
the damage you deal or the attacks you can withstand. They're
I
now
like
built
that.
around
It
making more
looks like there's
meaningful
more
choices.
build
For example,
diversity
in the Warlock
when you're
tree,
playing the game
between
now.
making your defensive wall of demons encircle your enemy, trapping them within, or breaking apart into a pack of vicious sluggers after a period. As the sorceress, you can now decide to take your fire hydra snakes and turn them into ice snakes instead, if that elemental effect is more your speed, or if it works better with whatever mad scientist build you're concocting.
So yeah, there's more diversity, it looks like.
These
Which is
changes
good.
are really awesome, as they push you away from picking the boring, passive upgrades and instead help your character feel much more unique, even when playing alongside those using your same character class. Still, there's also plenty of fat to cut, like how skills now allow you to sink up to 15 points into them versus the previous 5. After you've picked your
Oh,
base
you can have
skills and
15
modified
now?
them to your liking, the rest of the leveling experience is pretty much just deciding which ones to focus your points into, recreating a lot of the same uninteresting decisions we were making with the previous trees. I still like the changes they've made here, especially the added freedom to augment how those powers work in more meaningful ways, but I do wish they'd have gone a bit further in that
It
direction.
could be more.
Once you've bested the campaign and maxed out your character level, you'll quickly find yourself in the all-important endgame loop, which involves navigating an absolutely staggering number of upgrade mechanics,
There's the
gathering
charms.
materials you need to farm for them, as well as scooping up the best gear you can find and obsessing over every little stat they rolled.
I'm hoping the
This
gear
the
is
crux of
better
the
this
Diablo
time.
Experience. And Lord of Hatred is its most dense, meticulously customizable version yet.
Because
That
there's a
means you'll have
lot
to
of
contend
junk
with
gear in the
truly
other
some of the
versions.
most obscenely complicated menus around, which have only grown more cumbersome over the years. But you're in for a relentlessly rewarding ride if you go through the trouble of learning it all. Having been along for that ride from the start, I love obsessing over every little detail.
See, and there's the pit. I'm just not a fan of the pit.
Finally finding a piece of gear that perfectly fits your build, or saving up enough materials to reroll a stat that gives you that extra DPS you need to break through to the next world tier, is exactly what chunky ARPGs like this one are all about. Rolling into an endgame activity to watch all your careful preparation and planning turn into you absolutely stomping
So it
all
looks
over
like
enemies
we're gonna
and
be-
melting the boss in half a second.
There's going to be
is
more
downright
into
awesome.
like the grind. There might be better loot.
Knowing there's plenty of runway with 12 tiers of endgame
Trying to
difficulty
get the
after just
talismans.
4 previously is just insane. The latest addition to that min-maxing meta is the talisman system, which allows you to collect magical runes that slot into yet another loadout menu. Practically speaking, this is a clever way of offering set bonuses that are usually found on specific armor sets. Except here, you can use whatever armor
So
you
you
want,
can only
but talismans
have
stand on their own.
6.
It took me a while to wrap my head around it, honestly, just because I'm so used to the entire idea of a set bonus being a reward for collecting and
It's kind of weird that you can only have
pieces that belong
6
together,
though.
but decoupling the need to use specific pieces of equipment ends up being a pretty smart move, though it does add another thing to optimize and obsess over, and frankly, Diablo 4 already has so many of those that I sometimes forgot about talismans altogether. Still, they're a neat addition, and I'm glad they exist, especially since it gave me another thing to squeeze a few extra stats out of. That's always welcome. There's also the Herodric Cube, a nifty magical
Alright, let's see
device
what the
that does
cube
everything
does.
from turning common items into uniques to adding yet another stat boost
So
to
it
your
looks like
best
it's more,
gear at the cost of
Kanai
cube
cube
augmentation. After
than
spending
the
hours
other.
tinkering around with this thing, I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface with all it can do. But it's already quite the game changer, offering numerous new ways to squeeze even more power out of all that grinding you did. combined with the loot filter, which allows you to target specific items with specific
I wonder if the
affixes
loot
as
filter is
you
on
continue your
console as
climb toward
well,
ever greater power,
because a lot of
ending
people do
journeys
this on
fewer
PC,
annoyances than
so...
ever before. Now you can create rules to automatically filter through the loot you earn down to the most minute details, removing the need to sift through all the junk you don't need, so long as you have the strength of will to figure out how to configure those rules to your exact specifications.
I would just take off the common items.
Speaking of the endgame grind, Lord of Hatred takes yet another stab at providing a more compelling laundry list of activities to engage with while you carry out that search for loot. To be fair, I also praised Diablo 4 Vanilla's endgame based on my pre-release review time with it, but the benefit of hindsight and a couple more weeks of playtime on the live servers ultimately saw it wear pretty thin shortly thereafter, so it's hard to say for sure whether or not this attempt will fare any better after a few months. What I can say is that the system Blizzard built in this version has the least friction and the greatest variety of things to do so far, and the dozens of hours I've spent with it have been really enjoyable. The main tool Lord of Hatred uses to get you into that long road of grinding is
Yeah,
called
so it looks like this is
which
maps.
works like a curated playlist of
So you
activities
basically
you're
pick what you
directed
want to
one
use
after
for
another,
endgame
all of
mechanics
which offer
and do it that
compelling
way.
rewards. The best part of this is just how easy it is to jump from activity to activity, since you no longer need to hunt for Nightmare Dungeon keys or manually walk over to Helltide events. You can now teleport to the next activity on your playlist, and
That's actually a good thing to have that in there.
Rolling.
I hope whatever's here puts up a good fight.
One moment you'll be blasting your way through the pit, the next you'll jump over to go stomp out a lair boss, before returning to the war table to collect a batch of rewards. As you progress, these trees will offer more branching paths for you to pick from, and will start offering modified versions of these.
So it's like a
events
skill
to target
tree
specific
for each
rewards.
different
Even cooler
type.
are the new perk trees associated with each of the endgame activities included in war plans, which allow you to modify how these events work and let you customize your loot for doing so. Again, it's still hard to say whether or not this will have legs after we've been running war plans for a few seasons, but I like their chances of keeping my attention, or at least
I think
not
it'll probably
annoying
keep
me with
people's
weird
attention
versions
just
of
because
YouTube
it's
just to run
going to
these
remind
activities.
people of Path of Exile.
That said, though the premise of the entire warplane system seems to be reducing the headache of accessing endgame content, it has a pretty fatal flaw in how it works when you're playing with friends. Since your warplanes playlist is randomized each time you run it, and your friends each have their own specific things to tackle in their own orders that are unlikely to align with yours, if you're tagging along with a buddy to run through them, you'll almost instantly feel like a second-class citizen when you see a fragment of the rewards they get. You still get credit for tackling these activities, including loot at the end of each bested challenge, and some XP to go towards your various
Yeah, but if
war
you're
plan skill trees.
playing with somebody
Actual
regularly, you'll be able
progress
to
on your own war plan
attune your
next
thing
activity
with other
just so
people.
happens to align with theirs. When I wasn't the party leader picking the next activity, I felt like I was wasting my time and playing inefficiently by not making progress on my own playlist. And when I was the party leader making the picks, I felt guilty that my co-op buddies weren't seeing the same level of progress as me. It's one of those small details that completely undermines an otherwise good thing and weirdly disincentivizes.
But I normally
doing
normally
warplanes and
play by
co-op
myself unless I'm
together,
playing with my wife.
since it's more efficient to just work on your own playlists in parallel. Truly a massive oversight that will hopefully get corrected in short order. The other major endgame activity is Echoing Hatred, effectively a horde mode that throws every enemy it can find at you and asks you to withstand the onslaught
See,
for
that
as long as you're
looks
able.
like a
It
fun
starts
mode
out
right
at
there,
the lowest world tier difficulty,
where you could
and
just
climbs as you push
go,
through
go,
waves
go,
of
go,
enemies
go.
until it inevitably reaches absurd levels of challenge that lead to your inevitable loss and rewards you relative to how well you performed. Interestingly, access to this activity is locked behind a fairly rare, at least in my experience, consumable drop you'll need to get every time you want to test your metal. But this mindless, brutally challenging marathon is exactly the type of activity I love in ARPGs, and I also found it pretty useful as a way of gauging.
Yeah, it's
which
gonna.
world tier
Well, that kind
the
of sucks
build
that
is
you
going to
have to
withstand.
find a
It
certain
is a bit
material to
weird
do
that so
it.
much of the endgames
They should just have it
warplane
unlocked at a
system
certain
is
level.
about removing barriers to getting back into the endgame action, while Echoing Hatred appears to be a super fun mode you'll only get to play every once in a blue moon for whatever reason.
Yeah, they should definitely change that.
Finally, Lord of Hatred adds the feature we've all been asking for, fishing.
I have
Don't be fooled by
no
the tidal wave of apocalyptic monstrosities that
interest
surround
in
you.
fishing.
Diablo 4 is a cozy game now. In between killing demon lords and being driven to the brink of madness by the horrors you've been forced to witness, you can pull out a fishing rod and just chill out, my friend. Frankly, there really isn't much to this bizarre minigame, as you kind of just fish for a bit in each region to complete your collection, and then have no reason to ever fish again, but it's kind of hilarious that they bothered to add this in at all, and as someone who loves dense ARPGs
Yes.
and relaxing cozy games in equal measure, it speaks to me
It's
personally.
kind of dumb to have
Just
it in
hoping
there
they
if it
add
doesn't
dating
really
mechanics
apply to
next.
anything.
Blizzard, feel free to call me about this. I do have suggestions.
I gave my children a world.
Diablo 4 Lord of Hatred offers a wonderfully satisfying conclusion to the Mephisto saga, with one of my favorite Diablo stories yet, some really compelling changes to build crafting.
Looks like there's some good
equally
stuff that
interesting
they
new classes, and an endgame
that they
that seems
did.
primed to be more accessible and life-devouring than ever before. There are a few missteps here and there, like the completely lame way the new endgame handles co-op progression, or the fewer than expected reasons to explore Skovos beyond the campaign missions. But the vast majority of changes, improvements, and additions are enough to convince me to sink even more time into this incredibly dense ARPG. For more games we loved, check out our recent reviews of Pragmata and Life is Strange Reunion. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Okay, so for that review, they really didn't review the game. They give you, it was more about like bullet points. Like they didn't talk too much about the story. They didn't talk too much about the mechanics and how things work. It was more of a preview than a review, which is really weird that it was more of a preview than a review. I think that they probably could have done better with it in general, but I am excited for the game, excited to see what happens, and just excited to play it. And if you're excited to play it, we are going to be doing a birthday stream on April 28th, and we will be doing it the 28th and 29th for my birthday, and we'll be playing Lord of Hatred and going through it co-op. So I will see you guys there.